Yama and hello from the National Library of Australia. Today, Brendon and I will explore the legal, ethical and technical issues and challenges related to the 2019 release of the Australian Web Archive. Before we can do that, we pay our respect to the knowledge and tradition of Australia's First Nations people as the traditional owners and custodians of this land, and give respect to the elders past and present, and through them to all Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who have looked after this country, history and stories for over 60,000 years. To provide context, the Australian Web Archive, also known as the AWA, is collected through three main activities: selective collecting of individual websites since 1996 by the Library in collaboration with other Australian partners, known to many as Pandora; domain harvesting of the .au domain since 2015 in collaboration with the Internet Archive; and bulk harvesting undertaken in-house since 2011 of Australian government websites. Prior to March 2019, the Library provided access to only the Pandora Archive and the Australian Government Archive through two separate search interfaces and underlying infrastructure. What the Library now calls the AWA was launched in March 2019 and integrated access to the Pandora Archive, the Australian Government Archive, and provided for the first time access to the whole of domain harvests. The release of the AWA via Trove opened up access to this massive new collection, at the time about 600 terabytes of rich and diverse web-based content for people to search and explore. My part of the presentation will explore the legal and ethical issues, while my colleague Brendon will talk to the technical work and solutions. The National Library Act of 1960 mandates the Library to maintain and develop a national collection of library material and make the collection available. The Act also provides the Library with the broad power to do all things necessary or convenient to be done for or in connection with the performance of its functions. The National Library had been making discoverable some of the Australian web for over 20 years. However, the ability to open up the Library's complete archive of .au websites to the public had been restricted by both technological capabilities and copyright concerns. In 2016, the Copyright Act was amended and legal deposit provisions were extended to include digital material, meaning that we now had the legal mandate to collect Australian-born digital content. Concurrently, the Library had also made a significant investment in our technological capabilities. The Digital Library Infrastructure Replacement Program, or DLIR, which at the time was the Library's largest and most important digital technology initiative. So with a firm handle on its mandate and leveraging our new digital infrastructure, the Library decided to open up its full archive of the .au domain for public search through Trove. This undertaking was not without risk and not a decision that was made quickly, nor was the delivery of such a complex project, with the AWA component of DLIR commencing in 2017. This slide summarises the risks and their mitigations. It also in part illustrates the movement of a roller coaster, which at times is what this project felt like, highs and lows. The risk assessment undertaken by the AWA team documented numerous risks, as summarised here. Each risk required a mitigation, and early in the life of the project, the Library identified a number of technical solutions and other strategies to address these risks. However, throughout the project, the risk assessment was continually revised and our solutions and strategies change, at times stretching the technical team, who, for example, may have scoped a technical solution like blurring images, only to have it knocked out through user testing. Extensive user acceptance testing and performance assessments were conducted throughout the project to ensure the best possible outcomes. User testing informed the design and helped us learn how people understood what an archive website was and how they could engage with it. A closed preview early 2019 prior to launch with key strategic users also took place. This generated articles and blogs as part of the launch strategy. the reputational risks were high. Given the AWA captures the web, there was the potential for material to contain pornographic content or to be in breach of copyright law or the Privacy Act. While we were clear that we had a legal mandate to deliver the AWA, the library needed to provide evidence to our senior executives and our council that the risks were known and that mitigating strategies were in place, and seek endorsement to move ahead. Independent legal advice was sought, and technical solutions like relevance ranking and Bayesian filtering, along with takedowns, were recognised as effective mitigations. To address the copyright and privacy risk, the library sought the advice of the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner and, as a result, undertook a privacy impact assessment. For any material that is found to breach the Copyright or Privacy Act or infringe individual privacy, takedown requests can be submitted. The employment and work health and safety risks were also high, with the potential to breach the Australian Public Service Code of Conduct and the possibility to expose staff to harmful content as part of their work. These risks require considered mitigation, and with the support of our HR colleagues, staff involved in the takedown process underwent a psychological assessment and were authorised to view harmful or illegal content to determine whether it must be restricted or removed and whether it must be reported to the relevant authorities. Refresher training and incident reporting was another mitigation. The Australian Government security risks were addressed through several mitigations, including a confirmation that we had not inadvertently archived the dark web and an MOU with the e-Safety Commissioner to ensure that prohibited content would be removed quickly. Many of the mitigations were technological solutions, and Brendon will now speak to these and more.
Thanks, Libby. My name is Brendon McKinley, and I'll be taking us through some of the technical and design challenges of this undertaking. So, as already outlined, our ambition was to completely overhaul the discovery and delivery systems for archive websites, moving from the piecemeal archive delivered through Pandora and the Australian Government Web Archive systems to a single, fully searchable, consolidated archive, including the whole of the .au domain harvests. So, our manager approaches us and says, you need to create a new solar cluster to index the internet. It'll be 10 times larger than anything we've ever done before. We don't have a lot of money or time. Good luck. So said I to our lead developer in 2017. When we started the integration in indexing, the corpus data in its raw form was about 390 terabytes of WARC files on the Isilon storage. We agreed that the information unit for state tracking in the indexer was a WARC, so we weren't interested in tracking document sections inside a WARC or understanding any of the domain nuances that surround it, like crawls or sites. And when we started out, there were just under 1 million WARCs containing around 8.3 billion documents in total. We didn't read the WARC files directly from the Isilon storage. We get that data from the management system, which is Bamboo. We theorized and quickly confirmed that the major performance bottleneck in the systems would be the extraction of full text content from WARCs. We decided to try adding a cache in between the indexer and Bamboo to hold the extracted versions of the WARCs. We hoped this would improve matters in two fronts. Firstly, because we expected to more frequently iterate on indexing rules and schema changes rather than changes to things like text extraction, there should be a significant time improvement over the long haul by running iterative indexing runs for the same cache data. And secondly, we were hoping that some unknown but significant percentage of the WARC contents would be removed from the equation on all of these runs, simply because they were not things we would extract full text from, things like images, style sheets, and JavaScript. In the end, this idea turned out to be a huge performance improvement. The complete cache size occupied around 20 terabytes on the Isilon instead of the 390 terabytes of compressed WARC originals. We devised a fairly simple but effective means of regenerating the cache data when we make changes to the underlying code that builds the serialized objects. We distributed multiple instances of Bamboo around our hardware behind a load balancer. And in front of this is a multi-threaded shell script that simply races through the corpus in chunks, reading all the data out of a HTTP connection and routing it to dev null. Its sole purpose is to build the cache data, and it can do so in around 24 hours. So all this speed, do we need it? Well, the importance of speed here is how to fit the indexer into the operational procedures surrounding Trove. When our new Trove indexer, which predated this work, was implemented, we focused lots on performance improvements. And our goal was to get our indexing speeds up to around 1 to 2,000 articles per second, allowing us to perform a re-index of our existing Trove collections over a weekend. Indexing the Web Archive corpus at this speeds, however, would not be acceptable. 8.3 billion documents would take 48 days of 24/7 processing at 2,000 documents a second. We worked through a number of performance improvements, and in the end, we managed to increase our throughput to, at peak, around 60,000 documents per second. This is a screen recording of the instrumentation monitoring WARCs through the pipeline. Rows represent WARCs, columns represent them moving through the pipeline, reading from Bamboo, filtering, transforming, and writing to Solar. We don't really have time in this short presentation to cover the restrictions process, but it was another significant piece of work, and this is managed by Outback CDX. And for completeness here, I'm highlighting the Safe Search components, and I'll go into that in a little more detail shortly. And of course, Pandas at the heart of the web archiving infrastructure, our other collecting methods, and all culminates in the Trove Australian Web Archive Discovery and Delivery System. However, during user acceptance testing of the new Web Archive in 2017, our business became aware of the prominence of objectionable content, and the planned release was halted pending risk management measures being put in place. At the time, a decision was made that rather than removing the objectionable content from the archive, a number of automatic content classification mechanisms would be employed to ensure objectionable content is deprioritized from search results. And a multifaceted approach was taken to content classification and the subsequent impact on relevance ranking and search results. And earlier, I illustrated this part of the indexing process in the processing pipeline, and I'll cover this in much more detail here. In order to provide relevant information retrieval or good search across such a massive corpus, we did all the usual tricks like boosting fields such as link text and headings. But this doesn't contribute much to relevant results in the context of the web. We incorporated a number of tools to build safe and relevant discovery, including the integration of a commercial web filtering product that offers classification of websites into a range of categories such as child abuse, adult content, malicious and illicit drugs, but it has limitations. It classifies URLs. We get a lot of false positives if a site had been hacked prior to harvesting, and the product does not classify historical websites. So as a result, about a third of our collection was unknown to the classifier. We integrated the Yahoo NSFW image classifier targeting images in the Web Archive corpus. It's trained to identify nudity or pornography, and it determines thresholds such as failed, safe, maybe unsafe, or unsafe. It has limitations. It's only trained for nudity and pornography. Similarly, a Bayesian filter was trained for text to detect pornographic websites based on textual content, and we set similar thresholds to the image classifier, and it has similar limitations. This determines an overall threshold. And these are combined to classify pages into one of four categories with weightings on the PageRank as follows. So there's not objectionable, no impact on PageRank, probably not objectionable, no impact on PageRank, possible, maybe objectionable, PageRank multiplied by half, and definitely objectionable, PageRank multiplied by a tenth. And I'll just point out that I've glossed over the raw PageRank process, but that was another major undertaking to build a pipeline to calculate that. And after much development, a lot of user acceptance testing, this process resulted in an acceptable discovery product that provided good, relevant, and acceptable suppression of irrelevant, objectionable content. But ahead of this technical undertaking, the initial stages of the Australian Web Archive project called on research to understand the issues, if any, that existed with the system at the time with our existing systems like Pandora and Agua. We use things like site visits, surveys, previous surveys, outstanding issues from our reference inquiry systems, discussions with our business areas, and a lot of Google Analytics and statistics. We performed quite a few site visits, sometimes known as contextual inquiries in the UX world. And what were some of the issues that we uncovered? Well, the search results. The presentation of Trove's archive results were very dense. There was too much information, too many links, and too many decision points for the users. This old chestnut, the concept of archive websites is difficult for users to understand, and more issues with comprehension. So many users fail to move through to the actual archive websites after encountering a TEP page or a title page or a calendar screen. We then held collaborative design workshops with the business lines with the aim to generate and explore a number of possible solutions for solving the high-risk features for the new archive website delivery system. Here are some of the original outputs from the workshop, and this is, in this case, some delivery concepts. Here are some of the early wireframes for discovery, and here's some of the early delivery interfaces. During the testing of the whole web archive, it became apparent that current levels of performance were not acceptable. Our performance targets were set at 5 queries per second with a response rate of 5 seconds or less for 95% of queries. The project team proposed a number of strategies to improve performance, including capping full text indexing and reconfiguring of the grouping algorithm. So we decided to cap the number of words indexed from each page as follows. So 1,000 words for pages with a page rank greater than 0.8, 50 words for pages with a page rank less than 0.8, noting the following exceptions: no cap for page titles and no cap for .gov.au or Pandora pages. In terms of grouping, a decision was made at the Web Archiving Launch Project Board meeting to revisit the grouping of search results, trading off the accuracy of exact counts for more performance search results. In general terms, the aim is to reduce the number of calls made to the Solr index when processing and grouping the results of each query. So what is the current hardware for this Solr index? Well, today we sit at around 13.5 billion documents in the index. This is run out of 16 hosts. There's 6 terabytes of total memory, 192 terabytes of total NVMe SSD storage. And we're ingesting around 50 terabytes of new web archive crawls yearly. So wrapping this up, it was a mammoth undertaking, but done with the same ambitious determination that undertook to build the Pandora archive 25 years ago, as well as many of our other successes like Trove and National eDeposit. Today, the archive is well used and its future is very exciting. So thank you for listening today.